Want more stories in your life without adding to your TBR? That's where Audible comes in. I use it for the original novellas, the Plus catalog like Deanna Rayburn's Veronica Speedwell series, and those audiobook sales that you can beat. Right now, Audible has a special offer for new and returning members. Click the link in the show notes to see what deal you'll get and start listening today. Hi, Lynn. Welcome to What's Your Next podcast.
Hello, Laura. Great to be here.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have been writing books for 30 years. I started out in children's books when my kids were small. I had 3 kids in 4 years' time, and it was all I could do. But my real dream was to write about people in history. I'm really intrigued by the people behind the legends.
Yeah.
What I have found that they are just so not the same. So I have been able through time to be working on this. I always lose track. I think this will be my 8th book of historical fiction and for adults,
Yeah.
not adult books. That always
Yeah.
sounds so X-rated, but anyhow, because I really did enjoy my years as a children's writer, but this is really the real me writing
Yeah.
about people and situations that I really want to understand because that's how I get to understand them. I write a book around them.
Yeah, I love this idea of writing a book about him because it gives you the opportunity to have a hyperfixation, have a topic, have a person or era or specific. And then,
True.
because you're writing a book, you got to research and you got to look for all the rabbit holes that it will take you or the meandering. And then your job as a writer is to have a murder wall in some ways when you're solving a murder. I think of it
Mhm.
like I'm an investigator. And so it's like how to connect the dots and how to make the story to not only move forward, but also interesting enough that readers will just immerse themselves. And there's a sense of historical fiction can be boring. It's fascinating. It's like we repeat history so many times.
Right. Right. Well, I feel like people who think history is boring just don't know much history
Yeah.
because what I love is the more that you know, the more it connects. And
Mhm.
it's just a big puzzle. And I find that my books, they all have a connection. In fact, most of them in the previous book, even when I was writing it, I didn't know it, but I will mention the person in my book before the one that's coming out. The woman with the cure was the last book. I mentioned Marilyn Monroe. I didn't know I was going to write about her when I mentioned it. I had to mention it in the one with the cure. I mentioned polio. Anyhow, it all does connect, and I do go down these rabbit holes and totally enjoy that. Again, it's like a big puzzle. Some people have said, well, it's like being a history detective. I like that idea too. It's really much the same. It's just hunting down these leads and putting them together.
Well, I'm an investigator for by trade, so I can tell you,
Ah,
it's
yeah.
when
Is
you
this
see when you get a lead and you're like, what is this coming? And then actually uncovering them and the research it takes and looking not just at books and oral histories, but looking at evidence and you kind of got
exactly?
to and then your job as an investigator is not just you have all this evidence, it's actually how to build a case or how to solve the evidence. So it's like you have critical thinking and you have a lot of curiosity. Like you kind of have to just go figure out, okay, but does this make sense? Or is it the evidence here or what is happening? And I think in your case is kind of like an archaeologist looking at the what happened and
Hmm.
then share that history moving forward and make it in a way that feels engaging. And
That is the trick on top of it all, because I
mm,
agree completely that it is like being an investigator and taking all these clues and seeing if they're red herrings or how they fit together. Just looking at this larger picture to put together. In in my situation, it's a story. In your situation, it's a case. And there's usually a thesis. I always have a question that I
yeah,
start with that that leads me through all this. I have to answer this question.
yeah. So, talking about your books, you got Women You're Brilliant, which is a story between Marilyn Monroe and Eve
Arnold.
Arnold. And it's an interesting story of two women who are coming together. We hear from Marilyn Monroe from when she was Norma Jeane to what Marilyn Monroe was. And Marilyn Monroe is like such a iconic celebrity, like the OG celebrity that we have replicated over. and not just the good things, but also the bad things and how people behave in the parasocial relationships. So talk to us about this subject, about what made you lead go down this rabbit hole. It is a recent history, which I love, although it's been quite some time. So it's 70 years, six, it's,
Well,
yeah.
the year that this is coming out, 2026, is the 100th year of Marilyn Monroe. She was born in 1926. So this
Oh,
is
okay.
her 100th year anniversary, and there's celebrations around the world, exhibitions for her and things like that. In fact, I'm hoping to go to one in England
Talk
hung up
about
on her.
talk about what led you to talk about to explore Marilyn Monroe as a subject matter.
Gotcha. I got so excited about the centennial. Okay. What led me to talk about Marilyn or want to know to write this book about her? I have been intrigued with her since I was a little kid. I was
Yeah.
really little, 8 years old, when I saw her for the first time in 7 Year Itch. I saw it on TV. They played it. It must have been the year after she died. Anyhow, I saw her on there and she just, I felt so worried for her because everybody, all the men, everybody was kind of after her and she's just flitting around and somehow she gets away from them. But I worried about her. I thought everybody's always after her. And I also thought with how sexy she was and how everybody was wanting her, I thought, is that how women are supposed to be? The whole thing kind of confused and worried me. So as I got older, I really wanted to write about her because, as I said, that's how I understand people I really want to know. I write about them because you're forced into doing all the research. So, anyhow, I wanted to know about her, but there's a lot of books about her. And I
Mhm.
thought, what is the way in? And finally, a couple years ago, I thought, what about all the photographers? Because Marilyn Monroe is nothing if not an image that we all know. It's her photographs that have sold her. And so I thought, what about all the women that photographed her? What did they have to say about her? Well, I found out there's only one woman that she ever agreed to sit for, only one out of all those photographers. And I thought that was super interesting in its own way. But I wanted to know what it was like between these two women because once I looked at their photos, the photos that Eve Arnold is this one photographer's name. Once I looked at her photos, I saw that there's this different side of Marilyn. She looked completely different than the photos that we're familiar with. There's a few that she posed for, but even they look different.
Mhm.
And I had to know what was it about them that their pictures were different and together than anyone else's. And some people say, well, it's just real obvious is a woman doing it. But it wasn't just that. It was that they had this relationship. And that's what I explored in this book because Eve actually did not want to photograph her because she was trying to get her career off to a very slow start because she was part of the Magnum agency, which was the biggest photo agency in the world. It's worldwide, and it had all the biggest names. And she was part of that, but she was always asked to photograph women, and they were wives of the famous men or movie stars. And so when Marilyn came to her actually and wanted her to photograph her, and she didn't want to do it. Eve did not want to do it because it wouldn't enhance her career, but did convince her after a really bumpy start. You'll read in the book. They went on to have this relationship that both of their
I love this idea of exploring relationship among women, especially women that has been such a icon for the male gaze, and having this idea of another person who's taking the photograph, not just because she's a woman, but to be able to connect with and have this from a female gaze that's a very different take on things, and to
Mhm.
have and to share a more vulnerable side or a different side because we're not sexualizing. We're that's not the purpose. I think that's what makes it unique, and for you to explore this relationship, why this happened, and it's the fact that Norma Jean or Marilyn sought her out and had to court this raise this relationship. It's
Mhm.
fascinating because when we think about Marilyn Monroe, we think of everything's handed down to you. Like you don't have to work hard. You get so much attention. Like things are like celebrities are like everything's free. And it's like you kind of have to work a little bit more to really get to that point.
So I feel like that is Marilyn was an exception to that. I feel like her fame was not created by the studio or by other people. It was her. In fact, the
Yeah.
studio, even though she made them money hand over fist, they really hated her. I think it's because she did have power and they didn't have the
Yeah.
power over her. And so she's really responsible for it's Norma Jean creating Marilyn Monroe and infusing Marilyn Monroe with this persona that people believe this Marilyn Monroe. And I think too, that's what it was so important for her to do with Eve. She actually let Norma Jean out. She actually let Norma Jean appear. And
Yeah.
that's why she looks so different. See
Yeah.
Norma Jean, it's almost scary how different she looks. And you see her and I loved her. I loved her. When you look at Eve Arnold's pictures of her, she's this bright young woman and you think about all that she succeeded coming from nothing, worse than nothing. She had a horrific childhood, all those foster homes and being in an orphanage, and her mother was schizophrenic and never loving to her. She had to give
Yeah.
her up when Marilyn was just a couple years old. But so Marilyn had no love really, but
Mm.
yet she did this character that everybody loved. And when you see this Norma Jean behind it all, it's so moving. And I hope this book brings this Norma Jean to readers and they could see her because I think she's incredible. Now, was she unstable? Of course, she had to be. From her background, this was built on sand. Her whole persona was totally built on sand, and she was very needy.
Mhm.
But if just knowing this and knowing what she achieved, I just respect her all the more. Plus, I go into the book, there's behind it all, she had some physical problems. I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to give those away here, but they really influenced her life. Her health did.
Yeah.
And this totally affected her acting and the
Mm.
way she was around people at times. And when people say, oh, she was late and all this stuff, part of that sometimes was her crippling lack of self confidence. Because
Yeah.
deep down, Norma Jean knew that she was just a dirty girl, as I call her in the book. And,
Yeah.
but she also was very ill. And
Yeah.
all this, on top of all this, is she could not sleep. She, that was one thing that Eve noticed and remarked about in her book that she wrote about Marilyn. It's really a picture book, but she wrote about their relationship and about Marilyn as a little biography as well. And actually, that's what I based my book around, is this Arnold book. It's all right there. I just had to put together the pieces and take her pieces and go beyond them for Marilyn.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I as you were talking about Regina, I was like, "Oh, that's trauma. That's trauma. That's trauma." And then it's a childhood trauma can reflect so bad. It can make such an impact in your adulthood. And sleep is an issue, showing up late, like being needy, not believing there's unconditional love for you because you didn't have it, and how we react to things. And so building this persona in some ways is a safety for Norma Jean, not
True,
having to face the world because when she
true,
faced the world, she was just not, she was one of many and she was not loved. Or that's the message she received in her childhood that she
right.
owned it. And so, yeah, it's fascinating to see how far people have come, like how much they overcome. They're scrappy
Hmm.
beyond things that are being told no. There's like this idea of having the world against you and then basically have the world fall in love with you or
Yeah.
to yeah.
I wondered if one of the reasons she wanted Eve, who was known, she's already making a name for
Yeah,
showing the inner person that people don't see. I wonder if Marilyn really wanted Eve because she wanted to know if the world would love her
yeah,
if she showed her real self.
yeah,
Because like you say, she just wanted to be loved and she hid behind Marilyn and everybody loved Marilyn. But would they ever love Norma Jean?
yeah.
And
In some ways, you're writing a love letter to Norma Jeane. Like you're writing in like a place where you humanize the person and to see the flaws and the strengths and everything, and we get to see a more holistic view of what we think we know. I think we have lived in an image of photograph because, as you said, it's all photograph. At least
mhm,
there's some movies here and there, but we haven't heard her voice, like truly her voice, not the Marilyn Monroe voice. And I think you're providing like a place where it's let's look at a different angle. Let's look at this relationship and this place where it's like the mask is not on. The mask is
mhm,
it's a Trojan horse. It's driving you to get to where you need to go, but we're gonna
mhm.
actually see the individual.
Yes. Yes, and you brought up a point about the voice. This Marilyn voice was totally conjured, and when she was really comfortable, she didn't use
Mhm.
that voice. And I like to
Yeah,
imagine in my book, try to describe how she really talked, how she would talk. And she did try to drop that voice. She was always trying to grow. She was always trying to get out of the Marilyn mold, frankly. She
yeah,
made that, it was great. So she was once she became famous and had come in with this Trojan horse persona, she wanted to be herself. She tried to sneak out and be herself. So she decided, she made a big announcement in 55. She left her studio and said that she wanted to be a serious actress. And so she, at that time, she tried to drop the soft voice. She refused for photographers who would always tell her to bend over. They wanted to take shots of her. She refused to play along with the Marilyn thing for quite a while, starting in 55, and to see how that went. There are there are a few interviews, but the ones I heard, she actually didn't talk much. I think she was really afraid not gonna do the soft voice so much, but she was afraid to speak. Revealing herself was very scary, and I can
yeah.
totally understand that 'cause she knew that she was loved for Marilyn, and she never was loved growing up, and so it's like she did not expect for Norma Jean to get that love, though.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating. Thank you for writing about her,
Oh,
for
thank
giving the
you.
space. I think it's powerful because women's history is something that's often ignored. And the way the mystery of women and the expectation that we're supposed to be a certain way, we're supposed to have a certain live certain values, certain specific things, we're supposed to serve a purpose for somebody, for a man. And actually,
Mhm,
I think I love historical fiction writers who focus on female stories and women's voices and humanizes them, challenging the archetype and actually providing a voice and providing examples. So future generations can look back and be like, okay, this was not okay, or this is actually, we should not repeat itself because we've
yeah,
seen Norma Jean's and Marilyn Monroe, we've seen so many celebrity archetypes who have fallen the same way. And some of them are fighting back, and some of them are doing different voice. When I think about Britney Spears and the contemporary from my time, her
mhm,
downfall was a conservatorship, and but we're seeing like there might be a different path other than that. But I think
mhm,
books like yours, it gives us an example of what we may think it's not acceptable, and we can actually make a change in the future.
yes, and actually, Eve, had her own issues as a woman.
Yeah.
So the story serves to show difficulties women had that they still have, but in the 50s, for example, Eve and 60s and 70s, 80s. Anyhow, Eve was one of the few women documentary photographers, one of the few women photographers, period. And she just had the hardest time getting her toehold. And in fact, she got her first solo exhibition when she was age 68. And here she had photos all in all the magazines everywhere. She photographed everybody, and she didn't have her first solo exhibition until 1968 in the Brooklyn Museum, of all things. And then later on, she was made, it's an OBE, sort of like being knighted by the English Queen, and she got every photography award possible. But they came to her late in life after she had to prove herself and prove herself. And one of the cool things, though, she found her strength, I think, through Marilyn, that being a woman and showing a woman's point of view is very valuable. There's 51% of the world are women, and so their view is different and important. And I think she fought against that actually until Marilyn, and understanding that the woman's point of view is unique and important and
Yeah.
can show more emotion. That she fought against her women subjects, but they actually, they're half the world. They're important subjects too. So it just took a long time for all this to hit for her.
I love this idea of like really looking for two different women and really seeing what it was like and what it is still. We got privileges, but sometimes there's rights are being taken away on
Hmm.
that. Our predecessors fought really hard to get those. And I think it's powerful to see how far we've come, but how recent it was. Because this was not, I still think I grew up in like I'm an 80s kid, so I still think the 50s like 30 years ago. I know it's been a while. And I'm like, it's 30 years ago. It's all that stuff. But it's been like, it's still recent. It's not, we're not
Hmm.
talking about 18th century literature, historical facts. We're talking about the 1950s.
Hmm.
And it's,
Right.
so,
Yeah, I hear you. I feel that too, because I just turned 70. And to me, that seems like a crazy number because
yes.
all this time has passed, but it doesn't seem like it.
Oh,
So time is a funny thing.
time is
And
a funny thing.
maybe that's one of the things that's fascinating about history. It just happened. As you mentioned earlier, it repeats itself, and we should be paying attention to it because it has lessons for us that we never learn.
No, we haven't learned. Like, honestly, I feel like it takes a lot of courage to take a different choice. And so it's hard to make a different. So that's why sometimes we repeat self. I remember here in the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting this different results. It's like we're
Hmm.
so confused, so like into autopilot, and we're like, this is how it needs to be. And then you really, wait, no, we're not getting the result I wanted to. And I think that's what history really reminds us. It's like we're living in the
Yes.
digital anxiety. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk some book recommendations. What type of books do you read?
I read literary fiction, and I'm an English major. And
Yes.
once you're an English major, you're always an English major. And so I love literature. And I have taken very few writing classes.
Mhm.
Really, I just have learned by my literature classes.
Yeah.
And I specialize in British literature. The Brits still to this day really are magical with their words. I love Ian McEwan. I'm reading him right now, his newest book. But you had asked earlier about my book recommendations, and they're
Yeah.
all American. I'm thinking about it.
So I was like,
Yeah.
I think we're American, and you can always come back in later for an episode to talk about British literature. So you're more than welcome to. So it is okay. I know British are smarter. I'm like talking to a friend, and it's like, yeah, you're British. You sound smarter. I know it's not true because I watched Love Island, and those 20-year-olds are not smart, but the accent makes them smarter.
The
Like,
accent's
the-
beautiful. And a lot of the English writers, just their way of using words is really
yes,
beautiful. And that's why
yeah.
I like them. And I liked Broken Country. I like Broken Country. I think it takes place in England.
Claire and Leslie Hall. I think,
Right. And
yeah.
I love, who is the writer who did the marriage portrait? Didn't she do
Maggie
O'Farrell?
of Pearl. Yeah.
Yes, she's amazing. Hamnet.
Her biography of the 13 times she almost died.
No.
Oh, I think it's I am. And it's like she had 13 brushes with death. It's fascinating. It is
Wow.
such a like a memoir. It's such a great one. Like
Okay,
you
thank
read like
you.
fiction, like,
Yeah.
and it's like brushes with death. Like, oh,
Wow.
what a powerful concept.
Well, she's so amazing anyhow. And Kate Atkinson, that's another one. So
Yes.
I could yeah, if you give me a minute, I could tell you the many British writers that I love. Kate Atkinson,
Yes.
oh, she's
Yeah.
amazing in everything she does. She does historical fiction, some,
Yeah.
and what was it, God in Chains or God
I
and
think it,
Love Life After Life, I think was
yes.
one. And then she had all her mysteries,
Yeah.
or I guess they're thrillers with the Brody. So anyhow, she's so versatile.
Yeah.
But thinking about other people that I recommend, and the first ones I went to are ones who really feed me. Like, as I mentioned, didn't take a lot of classes, and I don't teach writing, but I really feel like I get fed with really good writing, good books.
Yeah.
And the ones I love in particular, I always I put them down and I pick them right back up and read them again, trying to figure out how they did it. And the funny thing is, they're always so darn good, I forget to look for how they did it. I could never figure it out. I just go through it again. I loved Lovers and Writers. That was one I hardly even put it down before I picked it up and read it again. And I think I did it 3 times. Never figured out how she did it. Really good writing is magic,
Yes.
but it was worth reading several times in a row.
Yes. I actually just got recommended Heart the Lover. It's been recommended, I don't know, like 5 people. They're like, you need to read this book. So I trust going back to Lily King's backlist is just a
Oh,
spectacular,
Euphoria
you
is
know.
an
Yeah.
amazing. Woo. In
So
fact, that came out her Euphoria came out when I was just starting to do my historical fiction books, and I just was so inspired by her. She just created this world is taking off on Margaret Mead, but,
yeah.
the language, like, she invented a language and all
Yeah.
these anthropological studies and customs and things. It was just amazing.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
Have you not read Euphoria? Oh, you must.
No, I have to
It's
like
so
bumping
good.
it. Like that sounds even better because this is for gonna make me cry. Because I was already told that the new one will make me cry.
Oh,
So
yeah. Actually, the new one, I think, was it was a bit of a tearjerker. I
yeah,
liked Writers and Lovers better. I
yeah,
cried for that. Good books I cry for, and it's like a mark of a good book. But that one, I felt like there was maybe more crying than I
yes,
needed to do at that moment.
yeah.
Uh, it didn't land and resonate so much Writers and Lovers did.
I am gonna bump out because you know what, writers and lovers and before are probably easier to find from the library.
I love sharing the little details. That's one thing I like about being a writer is just sharing the details I learned. I can't wait for people to read this because it was,
Yes,
something so fascinating.
yes, I love this. Thank you, and thank you for the reminder. Yes, Lynn, tell us where you can find it online.
Oh, it's just lynncullen.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn,
Yes.
for being in the show.
Yes, my pleasure. I could talk all day. So thank you so much for having me and your great questions.
That's it. Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there. Are you an author, publisher, or book related business looking to reach passionate readers? What to Read Next podcast is a perfect place to connect with an engaged audience of romance and mystery lovers who are always on the hunt for their next great read. Now, we're offering sponsorship opportunities. Whether you're launching a new book, promoting an upcoming release, showcasing a bookish product or services, we can help you get the word out. Let's work together to bring your books or businesses to readers who are ready to discover something new. Please visit watchreadsblog.com/sponsorships to learn more or reach out to chat about the perfect sponsorship or package for you. Thank you much for listening. Your next great reader is waiting for you.